on wood and bark, and I've just gone with curvy lines and organic shapes that just reflect my feelings and my responses to it. I created an image with spirals, but also just with lines across the page, and this is the one that I was going to show you how to do today because it's shorter and more simple. But again, if you get interested in painting with coffee, you can just search on the internet, and there's loads of ideas, loads of videos, all kinds of things you can do. It doesn't have to be abstract. You can paint anything really. So if I just show you basically what you need for this session, then give you a little bit of time just to make sure you've got it all, and then we can start. So basically I use instant coffee. Is that shining a bit too much? Let me move the light. There. I tend to keep these ramekins, you know, when you go to the supermarket and get creme brulee and those kind of things, or these little jars can be really handy, or you can use anything really, a jam jar lid. But I've just got some instant coffee granules in 2 pots. One I'm going to add water to, and the other I'm just going to crush with a spoon, so you've got some finer grains, because then we'll sprinkle those on the coffee afterwards. Obviously, warmer water will dissolve the coffee more quickly and make it a lighter brown, obviously. So think about, I've just got one here ready. That's about a teaspoon of coffee with just a little bit of water in it, and it'll just be a nice dark brown. Also, you will need a pencil and a rubber and a black biro. The reason for the pencil is we can just start drawing in pen. I like the results, how it looks when you've got a black outline to this design, but it can be more relaxing starting off in pencil to make those initial marks, because if you feel making the mark or you want to make adjustments, you can easily rub it out. So I tend to start with the pencil. And you'll need some brushes. Now I just use, these are watercolor brushes, and I just use 2 of different sizes so that I can do larger areas with the bigger one and smaller areas with the smaller one. That's a round brush and that's a mop brush, but really you can use whatever brush you've got. It's just about taking care, being able to take care. Also, paper towel is really useful always, just to mop things up, mop messes up, but also to dab your brush on it if you're needing to, if you get a bit too much on it. And then just a bit of water. I've got some warm water here ready so I can mix my coffee. So if you, let me see what, oh, paper. I've got just some cheap drawing paper. I've also worked, you know, if you've only got photocopy paper, that's absolutely fine. It's just about checking. Some different papers offer different types of absorbency, and if the paper's not quite right, you might not be able to move the water across the pages easily, but it should work with just photocopier paper. So I just thought I'll leave everything here so you can see, and just give you a few minutes to get what you need. Maybe put some nice relaxing music on, get yourself a cup of coffee or tea or something to have a drink. Make sure you're sitting comfortably, and then maybe you could indicate in the chat or let me know when you're ready, and then we could just get started. Does that sound okay, Marianne?
Yeah, sounds brilliant, Sharon. Thank you.
Cool. It's just because I can't see the chat, so I was just checking with you in case.
Good.
So there you go. A few minutes and then I'll get started. Joining the group. We're just getting the equipment together that we need. So some instant coffee in a pot with some water, paper, some instant coffee that's just been crushed, a pencil, a pen, and a brush. It's okay if you've only got one brush. I've just seen Debbie's written you can make a makeshift brush with a paper clip holding some frayed paper. I've never. That sounds interesting. I think we've got 4 people ready. Hope you've got yourself a nice drink and you're set up in a lovely space and you maybe got some music on. I feel like we might just be waiting for one more. No.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, can you use coloured paper or does it have to be white paper?
All that it will mean if you use coloured paper is that the brown of the coffee will look slightly different than it would on white.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if we've heard from Gemini, I think it might be.
Hi Sharon, yeah, I'm ready as well. Sorry.
You're ready?
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I was just reading in the chat. Is there anyone else? Sheila, are you ready, Sheila? And Joe.
Joe's in the office with us and she's ready as well.
Okay. And Sheila's just typing. I think that's everybody. Okay, Sheila's ready. So feel free, obviously, to do completely your own decision, but I'll guide you through this particular one that I'm making. So I'm going to start by using my slowly draw a box shape all the way around the page. Now this is only so I'm not painting right to the edge, because sometimes with using a lot of water, obviously the paper can start to buckle and bend, and it's easier to have a gap at the edge, either to hold it flat, even you might tape it down, but it's just simple just to have that line, and we're going to use the coffee within it. And I just took the idea of bark, tree bark, and patterns within tree bark. And so initially I'm going to start on one side. Now if I get my left simply because the camera vision that I see is the reverse of what you might be seeing to me, so it gets a bit complicated. So whatever on the side that your hand isn't the dominant hand, so if you're right-handed, start on the left side, vice versa. And we're just going to draw a shape, wiggly lines over, so start near the top and draw a line, make it fairly wiggly. It's not a straight line, it's like a wiggly you might see in nature. And then we're creating a thick wavy line, so move down a little bit, and where there's a shadow, is that stopping you from seeing? Move. Not stopping, I'm trying to illuminate what I'm doing. Another line, so you're following this pattern that you've made with the first line, so you're creating almost like a path, and then you're going to fill it with shapes. I'm just going to move the lights because I'm aware that it's creating a shadow. Is that a bit better? It looks better to me. So of large shapes that you're going to end up filling with the coffee. So you don't necessarily want them too small, it depends on the size of your brush, but you kind of want them random and wiggly and natural and interesting. So not all necessarily the same size, just filling this path with different size shapes. I'm leaving a gap around the edge of them because that paper will get left white. It kind of makes the coffee effect and the colour of the coffee stand out more because you've got the bare paper next to it. And I'm just creating my design. If I don't like what I'm doing, I could rub it out. I'm pressing hard myself. You can see the lines easily, but you don't have to press as hard if you're unsure, you know, you're just wanting to have a go and then alter it. And I'm just filling it in with all these different random organic natural shapes. Just to create a bit of interest in other areas, I'm going to go to the corner where the and just block that in with another wiggly line and then some shapes. I think it's relaxing to draw patterns and not worry about something having to look realistic as such, but you're just still being inspired by something that does give you joy. And I'm going to go to the other corner as well and then fill it with a few shapes, different sizes. All of the lines are quite wiggly and wobbly. There. The idea now is I'm just going to go over all these lines with a black pen. I find that quite relaxing. It also makes it stand out when you add the colour of the paint. It doesn't matter if you don't go exactly over the pencil line, you know, we can rub that out afterwards. It's just that you've got your bases here now. So if you get a biros are good because they're so easily available in the workplace, but also the water's not going to affect them when we add the watery coffee. So if you just spend now with your music on and your drink, singing to yourself maybe if you fancy, and just with your black pen going over the lines that you've made. So I'm just going to start and go in exactly the same order as I did with going around the edge first. Now sometimes, you know, you can find it's easier to move the paper around. I find it easier because I'm right-handed, going from the left to the right when I'm going over a line. So I'll just move my paper around to do that, going around the edge. And remember, this isn't about perfection. It's not about having to get something right. You're not being judged. You're not having to produce or think about anybody but yourself. This is just about process. So if you get an idea that's a little bit different to what I'm doing, just go for it. This is you to yourself. Be relaxing drawing over lines because you're not even having to make a decision. A bit like how doodling might relax you. I'm just going to keep going and I'm going to cover. But please, if anyone needs anything, just say. If I'm going too fast, just say. And the wiggles, doesn't matter how wobbly your lines are, if your hands are in wobbliness, and the wiggles add to that real interesting feel of something being more natural, something being from nature. It's also nice when you can link things, you know, if you go into making things or drawing things, what inspires always greatly make me feel lovely, being around trees, walking in the woods. You start to connect different areas of your time and life and moments together. So, you know, you can be walking through the woods and then start thinking of a picture you might want to draw or a painting, or use your phone to take a photograph of something that's just captured you. So I'm just going over every pencil mark that I've made, just slowly, thoughtfully, trying to relax. End up chuntering, talking too much because it's filling the silence, but I'm hoping you've got some, as well as myself, that you like, some music or something. I'm just making sure I've got, if the lines aren't exactly the same, it doesn't matter. I'm going to rub them out, but even if you've not got a rubber, it really doesn't matter. You know, and of course I'm using paper. You can use any size. Work large, work smaller. My biro smudged a little bit, but that's still going to be okay. And if you're working at a different pace to me, that's absolutely fine. Don't feel you've got to be exactly the same. If I'm going too slow for you, then, you know, just sit back and watch when you've finished this stage. And if I'm going too fast, it's okay, because just go at your own speed, because each stage will last for a little while, so you won't miss anything. There. I've gone over all my lines. I'm just checking. that I've not missed any out. And to me, it's just about something, excuse me, something interesting to look at, but it's simple. I'm just going to find my rubber to rub out a few, simply because my rubber's here and I can. Be careful that you don't smudge too much if that's going to bother you, but it doesn't matter. And if you haven't got a rubber, don't worry. Lines there. I actually like the physical act of using the rubber sometimes. It's a bit like smoothing out the creases or just having an effect on something that's a bit like ironing. I don't know why I don't like that. I don't feel the need to have freshly ironed clothes, but sometimes there's nothing better than just standing and smoothing out the creases on something, you know, when you're just wanting to feel calm. I don't think it ever makes you feel calm. There. Yeah, be careful, hold the paper so it doesn't rip. Just gradually get rid of all the pencil marks if you wish. There. So now basically it's time for us to start using the coffee. So I've warm water. Now, depending on how many granules of instant coffee you've used, sometimes you can leave it out and continue with it later, but it can get a bit sticky, you know, if it's a bit thick. So just be aware, just still have some more water there if you need it. I'm going to start with it slightly darker. I'd like to do the inner bit slightly darker than the outer bit, so I'm going to work on these first and then add a bit more water later, I think. So I'm going to use my smaller brush because I'm going to use smaller shapes. I'm going to fill these in first. Now, if you've only got one brush, that's fine. It's just simply a larger brush is quicker and easier to fill in larger areas, but the smaller brush is fine. Equally, a larger brush could be used for here. You've just got to take more care if you're worried about going over the edges, but really it doesn't matter. So I'm going to use a paper towel just in case I need it. I've got one ready, and just simply, I'm just checking to see if it's all on screen. I've got my coffee here. Can you see it? I'm just simply going to get a bit of coffee on my brush, and I'm going to start on the opposite side to the hand I've got the brush in, so that I don't have to lean on my work afterwards. And I'm simply going to fill in a space, one of these shapes. The idea is just to fill it in gently with your coffee mixture. You're not having to worry about colour choice. You're not having to worry about anything really other than filling that shape in, and then whilst it's still wet, you get a tiny bit of your crushed coffee and just sprinkle it on. So you'll have different sizes of grain. It just means then as it dries, it just creates a really nice effect. So I'm just going to crush mine a little bit more. So I've got some smaller ones as well as larger ones. Be careful if it gets any water in here or any dampness. That's happened to mine a bit, I think. They start sticking together. But now simply your paper towel's there in case you think I've got too much water on my brush. You just touch the paper towel and it'll just soak some of it away so that you can control what's there. So this is an example really of just controlling the water and controlling the coffee mixture filling in a space and relaxing. And then a sprinkle. Don't worry if it goes elsewhere. Just start to fill it in. So I'm going for the inside of all these wiggly lined shapes. And I'm going to work across this bit and then work on the corners first. Then I'll do the bigger bits. The only reason why I'm doing that is because excuse me, it's easier for me to lean on this section, for example, when it's not wet, and work on the inside here. If it takes a while to dry, then it's okay doing a couple and then sprinkling. You need it to still be damp for the sprinkling to happen. Now it works best with instant coffee. I mean, you could make yourself a cafetiere of coffee, I suppose, and that coffee, but the sprinkling doesn't work with the ground coffee because it just doesn't dissolve. It's all about it dissolving. And vary it. Maybe one of these shapes you put a lot of coffee in, a lot of the sprinkles in, and another shape just very small amount. It doesn't have to be the same. And it's something you can do even if you've never painted before. But obviously it does work better with a nice brush that holds the water just right. So you're kind of pulling water. I'm going to crush some more. I mean, if you get interested in things like that, you can paint with tea as well. You know, different kinds of teas have different kinds of natural browns, and often sometimes like greens, and the stronger it's brewed, the darker the colour. I was trying to start kind of in the middle and then push it to the edge if I'm worried about it not going over those lines. Lift the brush up a bit so you're just using a tip when you get to the edge. Well, it doesn't take that long for it to dry. I think if you look at the beginning one that I did first, already that's starting to dry, and you can see the smaller bits of granules that I've sprinkled on will dissolve and pattern. The larger bits continue to change, look a bit sticky. You also get a picture that smells really nice. I've just seen in the chat, sorry, there, Nita, my particular classes at the minute are face-to-face. I've got classes in Loughborough and Thurmaston at Roundhill, but there's lots of tutors that do drawing and painting. There's online classes as well, and there's classes all over the county. So you just look at the Go Learn online site and it'll give you lots of different options, drawing and painting. Sheila, yeah, with watercolours and salt, definitely. The idea of me picking coffee for today was just so that anyone could join in who might not have, paints, but may be able to just get some coffee out of the cupboard at home. Nita, yes, there's classes at the Moira Centre. There's classes at Loughborough Library in terms of Loughborough. Mixture though, drawing and painting. Coffee, for example, obviously we acrylics, watercolours, drawing, pastels, or different kinds of medium. I think what I like about this particular, you get involved with the process. Yes, you menu finding out something, but it's not stressful working towards that outcome. It's more about trying something different. Now I've done the centre bit. I'm going to just move my paper around and I'm going to work on this bit here, simply because I'm keeping it within the camera shot, but also I don't want to lean on any of that whilst it's still wet. Oh, I'm quite lucky because I love coffee. I'm just thinking, if you're not keen on coffee, this might not be a nice smell for you at all, but for me, coffee and caffeine are quite I'm quite friendly with them both at the moment. Oh, I'm glad I'm noticing chat, this is inspiring some of you. Definitely get the paints out again. Definitely just enjoy using them what it is you're making with them. You know, it's about something being produced in such a way that, you know, you're happy for other people to look at it. It's about you, what it gives to you when you're actually just involved in the making as well. Now, I've done this very simply today. I think, you know, if you got more into it, you can obviously work with different tones. So different amounts of coffee in the water, from the very dark to the very light. You can probably layer it and put more. Once something's already painted with coffee, you know, go over it again. You know, you can play around with it. There's lots more videos and on YouTube and things like that, you know, that will guide you through creating things as well if you want to pursue it beyond this. Now, I've used quite big grains of my coffee in the middle. You can see how some of them are pooling together and creating quite dark, dramatic marks. It's just nice seeing what happens and what it might evolve into. I'll try and get some tiny, tiny bits. I just fancy some little tiny bits. There. Can you see that? So in terms of that, I am gonna got some fresh water. I'm just clearing my brush. I would recommend washing them after, because they can, you know, if they've got a bit of coffee left on, get a bit sticky. But I'm just going to get my larger brush now and work on this big space. It is still wet around, so if you are worried about that, you can leave it to dry before you do the next bit. But it is nearly 20 past, so for me, I'm just going to do it now. And it's basically the same technique of painting it in and sprinkling it on. But just to make it look a little bit different, I'm going to add a bit more water to my coffee mixture. Warm water. Doesn't have to be, obviously, but you know, it just makes it dissolve quickly. And then it'll just make it that little bit lighter, I hope. See if I've got enough. So I'm just going to, obviously, because it's a bigger brush, you'll have more water on it, so you might need your paper towel a bit more here. And it's a case of fill, bit of space. Again, it's the same thing. I start kind of in the middle, then push it to the edges. But before it dries, I'm going to just add a few sprinkles here and there. Get some more. I'm just controlling the water on my paper towel and filling the space. Now, depending on what kind of paper you've got, your watery coffee might be moving differently to mine. You know, if it's very, very absorbent, it might not sit on the surface as much as this is to push it around. So just a case of getting a bit more. I think I'm going to get I quite like finished images that aren't necessarily all even or all perfect, but interesting marks in where you can see what you've created something with. So don't worry about getting it perfect. I think you have to sometimes worry about whether something is right or not. I'm going to sprinkle it in sections rather than just over the whole thing. I'm trying to just put it in a little bit so it creates some interest over it. So sometimes you might find that the smaller brush is easy around the edges, but actually, as long as you go to the tip, the end of the bigger brush, you know, because it's a small tip, it's still, you can still control it with the large. Oh, I've smudged mine a little by leaning on it with my jumper, so just if that will bother you, just be careful. Be interesting to find out if different kinds of coffee create different brands. I don't know. So I'm just going to take a bit of that off because I need to, you know, if you feel you've got too much water on your paper, your brush, and pick it up, put the drier brush back in, and it just soaks water. Some of that coffee mixture and moves it around for you. Then for me, that's basically it. It takes, like I say, it doesn't take too long to dry in terms of the coffee, but the other bits can be a bit sticky initially. But you've just created something quite simple, but I think quite effective, quite beautiful. And like I said, I'll just show you this one again. Just different shapes and patterns. You know, this was a spiral, can work as well. There's all kinds of things you can do with it. Have a little look online. With coffee. So there's only 5 minutes left. I wanted to leave a bit of time at the end so that you would clear up within this hour, just in case it was a very precious hour that, you know, didn't want you stressed and rushing off, having to clear up afterwards. So I hope you've all enjoyed it. I've just seen in the questions, what would the salt do? Sheila mentioned salt. With watercolours, I've not tried salt with coffee. With watercolours, and you put salt onto a wet area of watercolour, the salt absorbs and sucks in some of the water, but leaves the pigment behind. It's a nice pattern. So I think if you look in the chat, links and messages, I think from Marianne. Also, I know that she's recording the video, but I'm not quite sure where from. I hope you feel good at the end of this. So I will just let you say goodbye when you feel ready, go when you